Dear students, now we are going to learn about lower course major landforms. There are four major landforms which can be formed by a river in its lower course. The four major landforms are floodplains, levee or natural levee, estuary and delta. Now talking about floodplains, how floodplains are formed? The floodplains are formed because a river do a lot of lateral erosion, the erosion of the bank or the erosion of the land. So lateral erosion results into the formation of extensive floodplains. That also results into the reducing capacity of the river to transport. The transportation capacity of a river reduced in the lower course. Why? Because the river is carrying a lot of sediments and the river is also entering into a zone where there is no slope. The slope is very gentle. So extensive floodplains are formed in the lower course. A floodplain is nothing but an area which has been drained or which has been flooded by a single river system. Second important feature is levee. Levee, it can be a natural levee. The banks of the river used to have deposition of a lot of sediments. These sediments are deposited on the banks and which results into the formation of levee, which we are going to learn through a diagram. Third important feature, the landform depositional feature, is estuary. When a river enters into the sea or an ocean, if the river has the force, then the river will carry its sediments into the sea, and opposite to that, the waves and tides of the oceans or seas will deposit that sediments back onto the river channel. So a particular kind of shape, a depositional shape, will be formed, which is known as estuary, which we are going to learn in a diagram. And last but very important form of landform which is formed at the lower course is delta. Deltas, there are different types of deltas. The deltas are classified on the basis of influence. The deltas are classified on the basis of shape. But generally in the entire world, most of the rivers have the delta, and these deltas are classified on the basis of shape. Now we are going to learn about natural levee, that how the levees are formed. There are three stages for the formation of a natural levee. The first one is when a river enters into the lower course. What will happen? In the lower course, the river is carrying some amount of water. So for example, this is the valley of the river and it is flowing inside the bank. Sometimes what happens that the rivers are also flooded due to extensive rainfall. So when the river used to flood, it covers most of the banks of the river. So the river water is exceeding its bank. You can see the level of water is up to these 2 points. We can name it as A and B. Whereas here in this diagram you can see that the river is able to overflow the bank. So overflowing of the bank, what will happen when the river overflows? The deposition starts on the banks. So a lot of sediments are going to be deposited on the banks of a river or near to the banks of a river. So this is the deposition. Now the fine sand, fine material will be deposited away from the bank, and coarse material, the coarse material will be deposited just very close to the bank. So here you can see this is the deposition of the sand or the sediments by a river due to flood. The flood water recedes back into the river valley, but the amount of sediments remains on the bank. Now in the third diagram, if you see, here what will happen, that the river water has recedes back into the river valley. The water has recedes back, but this region has the deposition of sediments. So you can see the height of the bank is increased. This deposition or the deposition of sediment on the bank will increase the height of the river bank, and this is known as natural levee. So natural levees are formed due to the deposition of sediments on the bank. Okay. Next feature is, so this is, here you can see, before we wind up, this is the first stage, this is the second stage, and this is the third stage. So there are three stages behind the formation of natural levees. Now the next feature is estuary. So estuaries are nothing but a kind of depositional feature which generally forms near the sea. So for example, this is the sea coast and a river is flowing into the sea. So the river is flowing into the sea. This is the direction of the flow. Now what will happen? Because river has more force, somehow it has more force, it is carrying a lot of sediments, it is carrying its carrying capacity is also high, amount of water is also very high. So the river is able to enter into the sea and it deposits its sediments here. Now the deposition of sediments, you can see, this was the boundary of the sea, but because of the force, the river has entered into the sea up to some extent and it has deposited its sediments. Waves and tides of the oceans and seas will also deposit the material back onto the main channel. So here you will see that the deposition is on the river channel, outside the sea coast and also inside the sea. Now here there are two kinds of land can be formed. One is the marshy land or salt marsh, because sea water, the salty water and fresh water of the river is mixing up over here. So basically the main feature of the estuary is the mix up of the salt water and fresh water. So in estuaries a lot of deposition took place and it seems that river is actually entering into the sea. Okay. Now what about delta? That we are going to learn in our next video.